Every year, we come together here, marvel at the view, and strengthen our resolve to preserve it. This year, we arrive again. Our ambitions are bigger because our obligations are too large to measure, and our opportunities too substantial to squander. At Microsoft, we bring unparalleled sustainability commitments to over 33 million square feet of real estate around the world, creating modern workplaces where nature is the building block of our designs. Because thinking sustainably, building sustainably, living sustainably, and working sustainably is in our nature. So this year, let's commit ourselves to making Earth Day every day.
On a stormy night in Philadelphia, with only a kite, a house key, and wet hamstring, Benjamin Franklin captured lightning in a bottle. Over 260 years later, with a little resourcefulness, ingenuity, and grit, we're not only capturing energy from the sun and wind, we're storing it. So even when the sun isn't shining and the wind isn't blowing, we're still powering America forward. As the nation's leader in energy storage, and as the world's largest generator of wind and solar energy, we're ensuring Americans have the energy they need, whenever they need it. This is our era. This is America's energy era. Next Era Energy.
Well, I'm very proud of what BDPA is accomplishing. I think this generation of young people is the best generation that God has blessed us to witness. They're talented, they're gifted, they're intelligent, but you know what this generation needs? Encouragement. And BDPA offers that encouragement to this generation of young people. This is the best generation of young people we've been blessed to witness. They're smart, they're gifted, they're talented, they're intelligent. They just need encouragement. And I'm so pleased that programs like we witnessed tonight gives our young people not only insight into the future of technology, but their role in the future with technology.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michelai. I'm a freelance business and technology reporter. I mainly report on tech entrepreneurship, business on a national scale. You can find my work in AFRL Tech, LifeWire, and The Plug. Today, we are at the second day of the Earth Day Summit here with BDPA. Yesterday, we kicked off talking to some channel partners who really discussed how to work with big hitters like Microsoft, Verizon, and different companies in a larger capacity, especially as a small business. We also discussed getting into the startup industry, as well as, how everyone can coordinate and work together in different ways. It was very productive. We also shared a lot of resources for small businesses that you can find, not just in the DC area, but on a national scale as well. So today we're going to be talking about infrastructure, tech, and policy. This is Media Day. Specifically in this first talk, we're going to be talking about tech, HBCUs, and small businesses. Panelists, if you want to go ahead and turn on your cameras, I'll give you guys all a second to talk and introduce yourself and talk about the work that you do. Joining us today, we have Ron Hamm, Anissa Lumpkin, Ayana Pickett, and Harry Wingo. Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing today?
Hello. Hello. Doing great. Thank you.
Awesome.
Hi. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining. All right, Harry, do you want to go first? Just please tell us where you work and your expertise and why you're here today.
Oh, thanks, Michelai. I'm Harry Wingo. I work for the Department of Defense at the National Defense University. I'm at the nation's cyber college, the College of Information and Cyberspace. I'm also passionate about DC. I was born in the city. I live here, and I've got these colors on because we're going to be a state. So red and white. And what I do is I'm passionate about bringing the next generation of tech leaders in. And thank you to BDPA, Perry Carter, everybody on the team. Honored to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm also calling in from DC. Fingers crossed on this statehood. Ayana, do you want to go ahead and give an introduction?
Absolutely. I'm Ayana Pickett. I work for General Dynamics IT, and I am the Senior Supplier Diversity Specialist there.
Awesome. Awesome. Ron, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, and thanks first of all to BDPA and of course Perry Carter for inviting me to be a panelist today. I look forward, to fruitful discussions here in regard to policy and all the other things that are involved with this panel. I am a federal lobbyist and really I consider myself an advocate. I work a lot with local governments and higher education institutions in terms of building their capacity. Of course, infrastructure is the big talk now. So how can we leverage some of these federal opportunities to rebuild not just our roads and streets, but what about affordable housing, educational opportunity? How can we, deal with the healthcare disparity to make sure we have healthcare facilities in these various communities? I've been doing this job since about 1995, so for a little bit of time, interfacing with Capitol Hill and with federal agencies. So again, look forward to talking with everyone today.
Awesome. And Anissa, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Michelai. So thank you to BDPA. Thank you, Michelai, for hosting us today. I'm Anissa Lumpkin. And so I am first let me start out by saying I'm a proud graduate of an HBCU, Tennessee State University in Nashville, Tennessee, which kicked off my career in the Air Force. I did Air Force ROTC there. And from there, I majored in aeronautical and industrial engineering technology. And I have been a part of the Air Force ever since, from active duty to reservist. And now I work for the Air Force as a civil servant. I mainly specialize in unmanned combat air systems, radar aperture radar, and now started an initiative just last year to kick off as the program manager of the Air Force Small Business Innovation Research, Small Business Technology Transfer Program, which is a lot of words that we usually sum up into Air Force SBIR and STTR program. It's an $800 million plus program where we look for small businesses to do research and development for the Air Force. And we have kicked off a huge initiative to get HBCUs a part of that program and have already seen some successes and wins with proposals, highly competitive proposals and wins and awards to HBCUs. So I'm just really excited to be here today.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Perry wasn't lying. We got some heavy hitters on the panel today. I'm very excited to start digging in. Before we dig into the questions, we have some questions for each of you. I just want to start off by asking, Anissa, you just touched on being a proud HBCU graduate. What's some advice you guys can give to HBCU graduates looking to break into the tech field? What are some resources, any advice that you guys can offer about what it's like starting off right after college?
Absolutely. So when it comes to, and I'll just go overall, like with the Department of Defense, has every year 3 solicitations a year. That's 3 broad agency announcements where we put out topics specifically in different tech areas, from cybersecurity to data analytics. Even our agricultural departments put out awards. And so I encourage principal investigators, graduate students at HBCUs, or students who have built businesses outside of their studies, to go and look at our Department of Defense solicitations that come out 3 times a year. Also, we have within the Air Force, we have our Air Force Tech Connect, which just launched, and it is a great way. I've heard a lot of great feedback, but it's airforcetechconnect.org. where you can go and submit your ideas or the technology capability areas that you are working on and put it into our idea module. It's all within our government cloud, so it's all secure. Your information doesn't get leaked out to anywhere, but we share that information with our subject matter experts across the Air Force. And you actually get a real person that will contact you and say, hey, I'm interested in what you have to offer, if it's something in their specific area, and find ways to partner and work with our scientists and engineers within HBCUs. And you would be absolutely surprised at all of the different areas that the Air Force touches, and not only the Department of Defense. I mean, if you think about every base is almost like a small city. Our commander, our base commanders, they're considered mayors. And so everything that you would have in a city, we have on a base. And so there's opportunities that are available for everyone to get involved.
Awesome. Anyone else can hop in too. I'm not going to call on you guys. It's not a classroom. We're going to have a very easy form of conversation. So if anyone wants to hop in there and just talk about any advice or resources for HBCU grads looking to break into the tech/entrepreneurship field.
So I'm going to jump in right there.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate. I went to the U.S. Naval Academy. So my path was planned out for me when I got my commission as an ensign in the Navy, and I headed off to SEAL training, and I was a Navy SEAL for 6.5 years. What I would recommend is when you graduate, really consider what your passion is, because passion is what gets you past competition. You're gonna face all kinds of competition. What are you good at? You've got, you're graduating, so hopefully you've had time, to think about what areas of study you liked. But I would say, on the theme of small business, imagine yourself not only as a creator, imagine yourself right at graduation as an owner. If you haven't been an owner already, picture what type of business would you like to have? And there's so many expiring examples, and you're already ahead of the curve since you're here at BDPA and you're connected with BDPA. And use your networks, because you can go fast alone, but we go faster together. And so what matters is we're not just talking about networking. I would encourage you to get those relationships going. Build alliances before you need them. And so what I would say is, think about your passion within technology. You still have time to explore at that point in your career, but I would say envision yourself as an owner, maybe even consider starting. And if it's not time to start a business, look at those who are entrepreneurs. And yes, they're great companies to work for. At one point in my career, I worked for Google for 5 years. But I would say there are so many opportunities around you, and particularly those things that help what the defense sector, national security, what they're working on, whether it's DoD or Homeland. There's so many opportunities, but I would say thanks them, thank being an owner, and then just follow your passion and get started on your skill and think about what the world needs. So thank you.
Of course. All right, another question. Internships. Well, how do you guys feel about internships? I know there's been a big discussion recently, especially for tech internships, because it takes a lot of brain power, takes a lot of experience, not just in the classroom, but outside of the classroom. But somehow students are still accepting unpaid internships. So thoughts on unpaid internships? Is it experience over money? Should they meet in the middle? Or should altogether internships just have should there be a new way of thinking when it comes to internships as far as they should be paid outright? I will say early in my career, I took an unpaid internship, and I still feel shame for it because I worked so hard, and I'm a journalist, and I was getting published, and I'm like, I'm doing this work and I'm not getting paid for it. And then I got a mentor who shunned me and was like, don't ever do that again. So I think that goes also into the mentorship discussion. So thoughts, I just said a lot of words, but I would love to hear what you guys think. I already saw Anissa's head like,
My thing is always, when it comes to anything, when it comes to your value added, if somebody really values you and wants you there, show me the money. Within that, and that goes for not just internships, but everything. If someone has a diversity initiative, where's the money? That is backing up all of that. And so, within the Air Force, we have all of our internships are paid, from even down to the level of our high school students. They are paid. Matter of fact, you're put on you're put on the payroll, where we've had people who have worked with the Air Force since they were in 10th grade, and it counts towards their retirement if they stay with the Air Force. It's all about adding value and making sure that overall we are increasing your education. We'll pay for your education. As graduate students, we have various programs at different levels, from summer programs where we bring you in, fly you in for to work in our different laboratories. We have our what's called our SMART program. The really, really, really smart people to get full PhD programs paid for, full ride while we're paying your salary while you're going to school, and all you have to do is study and show up. So I think it's all about valuing our people, building our people, and whatever it is that you want to succeed in. We have to make sure you have those the assets in order to be able to be successful. It's all about being successful, and it's kind of hard to be as successful as you want to be if you're worried about money at the end of the day. So
yeah. This is Ron. I do agree with Anissa on that. We've been working, I'm actually on a board for a university out in California. It's the CSU internship program, California State University internship program. And what we found out is we had wonderful students come from California to come back here to do internships on Capitol Hill, to do them in federal agencies, and as well as the private sector. What we've discovered too is that they work awfully hard and they get the experience, but they need to be compensated for what they're doing. I think that actually enhances their experience, if you ask me. And so there was legislation that we did work on that did pass in the House, that internships would be paid. Now we are fighting the battle to have members implement that, because they will say, well, we have an intern who's come, but he doesn't have the experience of this intern. So, oh my God, it's too hard to figure all this out. So we won't pay anyone. And we think that is really, it's not the way that it should be, and that interns should be on top of the experience that they gain. There should be some compensation, because they still have to live. And I think, as Anissa mentioned, you have all the worries of the financial piece. How can you really concentrate on the intellectual part and on getting the practical experience? So I see that, in terms of when you deal with internships, I think whether it's in the private sector or even public sector, that they need to be paid. So that's something we're pushing for. We just had a big discussion on that 2 weeks ago, the strategy around lobbying and advocating for paid internships. So I do wholeheartedly support that.
Just want to jump in on what Anissa and Ron said, and think, yes, it's absolutely important to get paid. I was fortunate in high school. I knew I was interested in STEM. So with the Department of the Navy, David Taylor Naval Research and Development Center, I had an internship going into my senior year, the summer before my senior year of high school. And I just put something in the link. These programs are out there. Go Navy. I have my Navy hat right here. So if you can do that, you can get internships, not just with the government itself. There's programs, but you have to do your homework. And then you have small businesses, you have folks in the private sector, but really, use BDPA, use your networks to find these opportunities. And sometimes if it turns out that you can't find something, again, look at what your passion and where you want your trajectory to go, and then fall back on value. If it's not cash, it may be value, and you want someone who's going to be a champion, you want an experience, is going to put you where you want to be. But absolutely think about getting paid. We should be paying folks. And I like the word apprenticeship. We should really have those apprenticeship tracks going. And also, if you want to do something, think about being a cybersecurity professional. The nation has a gap anywhere from 300,000 to 500,000 people with cyber roles that are not filled. And there's some things that you can get where maybe if you don't get the salary you want, maybe that person who's bringing you on can pay for one of your certifications, and you can get some ethical hacker training or SANS Institute or something like that. So, but yes, it'd be great if you can get paid.
Absolutely. I like the apprenticeship word. I feel like it comes with prestige, and I've been seeing that a lot more in the tech industry too, is like apprenticeships. So I feel like a lot of people have given just the word internship a negative connotation. Like, you think internship, you think, underexperienced, or you think college, I don't necessarily think that's true. I did an internship on my master's program that I was fully paid for, and I was like, y'all can just change my title, just put me on the payroll. We were working together, but it came with that connotation of like, okay, this is someone who's younger in their career, which is also true in some cases.
Thank you for that feedback. One follow-on point: there are so many Black-owned businesses that are in the defense space. That are if you're in DC, for example, National Capital Region, Maryland, Virginia. Look up those organizations, and there are groups that support them. And ask us, ask BDPA. We can point you to them. Those are some internships or paid internships and apprenticeships. Thank you, Michelai, that you could find. And just remember that they're out there. But you have to do your homework. We'll help you.
Absolutely. Hi, Ray. Welcome. Ray was with us yesterday. I think he might be frozen right now. Hopefully, you can hear me. Hey, Ray, do you want to go ahead and give an introduction?
No, I can. Sure. So, first of all, folks, sorry for being late. I'm traveling back to DC from North Carolina. I had a family issue with COVID, and I had to take care of it. Things are good here, so I'm headed back. So that's why you see me in the car with my seatbelt on, but I couldn't miss the opportunity to participate. So I'm Raymond Bell. I'm the founder and CEO of Hope Project. A lot of people around the country consider Hope Project to be one of the most successful IT job training programs in existence. Back in 2009, I pretty much went on a personal campaign to try to end poverty in Washington, D.C. And I decided on IT as a career of choice for young inner city kids who wanted to build a career and have a good upper middle class life. We got about 2,000 graduates, and they work for everybody: Lockheed, Northrop Grumman, CACI, the World Bank, Bank of America, you name it. There's probably a Whole Project graduate there. Something I didn't mention yesterday, but I'm really proud of. We got about 40% of our 2,000 graduates that hold some kind of clearance, from a public trust all the way to a top secret with polygraph. So I'm excited to be here. I'm looking forward to sharing my insight on some of the topics. So thank you for allowing me to participate.
Amazing. All right. I'm going to bounce through some questions I'm seeing in the chat. This first one is for Anissa. So for HBCUs new to technology transfer, how do we encourage principal investigators to develop solutions for the Air Force and the new Space Force?
Yeah, so there's quite a few programs within the Air Force. Mr. Joe Gordon is the director of Air Force Technology Transfer and Transition Program. He's also a graduate of Prairie View A&M, and his program has what they call educational partnership agreements, where we bring in graduate students as well as universities for fellowships. That's another word. We're talking about apprenticeships, but we also have fellowships where we bring in those principal investigators to come and work in our laboratory, and we share that information. One thing that I always say is not that the Air Force needs HBCUs or HBCUs need the Air Force. It's a partnership. We need everybody in order to bring your technology capabilities in to help with our national defense strategy and make sure we're the best of the best in the world, right? And so with that, there's various programs that folks from HBCUs can get involved in with and working with the Air Force. Another place that I love to point people to is we have what we call our small business toolkit for everyone. But our Air Force Research Laboratory has a small business toolkit. It's AFRLSBHub.com, AFRLSBHub.com, and you can go there and look at the toolkit, and it shows you all of the various areas that you can get involved with your research, from technology transfer and transition. We do hackathons, we do cybersecurity training, various colliders, matchmaking. It's all about networking with and finding someone in the Air Force that's interested in your technology. From there, it just grows. So if you can build your network of Air Force stakeholders, or what we call our war fighters, the ones that are on the line doing the work every day, they know exactly what they need, and you probably just have exactly what they need to be successful in their job. And so that's what's really important, is to understand that you may have something that we need to be successful. So don't ever count yourself out always put your ideas out there. And again, I really hit home Air Force Tech Connect. Put your technology capabilities in there and let us know what you're working on and what ideas you have, so that we can find people in the Air Force to meet that stakeholder that you have.
Thank you. That was amazing. Can you please drop links to those resources in the chat if you have a chance?
Yeah, I will.
Check them out. Thank you. All right, next question is for you, Harry. You kind of answered it already in the chat, but I would love to hear it on the panel. All right, you seem passionate about drones. What paths do you recommend for community STEM organizations such as BDPA and Nsbe to launch drone racing leagues, or to work with drones in general? It's a fun question.
Thank you. I'm smiling. I love talking about small drones, and I mean indoor and near door drones. And so these are the ones that you can buy, that would fit in the palm of your hand. And there's a special class called Tiny Whoop. They're micro drones. These will fly for 5 minutes, but if you put on a headset with VR, you can fly this thing around your house, up the stairs, out one window, back in another window. But you can imagine having small kits, and you can buy these Tiny Whoop small drones with companies like Tiny Whoop or Acroby. And what happens is you could get started as a college, as a high school, even at the middle school level, a ready-to-fly kit. It can be $150. So less than $200, you can get these things. And I propose that we get going on making this into an e-sport, because esports are great, but people sit down, but there's no cardio esports. So imagine getting a hold of these drones, and you can fly them, and maybe you could combine them with laser tag elements, and the drone could do things, but just whatever you think is fun. But I think a drone tag game that people start, but I would love to see that, because you'll learn about microelectronics. You can even get some programming going, so you understand what's going on with this artificial intelligence, machine learning revolution. You've got electronic warfare. You can try and hack, counter hack. But I would say for BDPA and for NSBE, getting behind this effort, and I got some resources. The Naval Academy has been doing things that are close. I know in the National Capital Region, maybe we'll get the University of Maryland, perhaps Virginia Tech, which is part of some powerful things. But I would say the HBCUs and the University Affiliated Research Centers, this would be fun, because there's no cardio esports. I don't think Pokemon counts quite. That's like golf. And we need this at the infantry level. For, as a frogman, Navy SEAL officer for several years, and I know Anissa knows this, counter UAS is a real deal. That's a very important thing. But if you understand how these systems work, you have fun at the same time. You get active, have fun. And Drone Racing League is amazing. That's on ESPN. They have these very big auditoriums, but not everybody can do that. I think actually having something that you could play in a room, or half the size of a basketball court, with equipment anybody could get their hands on today, and build from there. I think we could have a drone tag league that just really sends the next generation of engineers forward. So
I think you're on to something. I'm intrigued. Now I have another question. So one thing I've been looking into with just different technology is how we have to convince the people to invest in it and to use it. So I recently wrote a piece on virtual reality in the Oculus Quest 2, which is about $299, which is the most accessible, VR headset people can get. Yet people are still wary to use it because they don't believe in the technology. So can you tell me, if I wanted to go to a store right now and buy a small drone, what am I looking to spend? Can I really get it in the palm of my hands today if I wanted to?
So again, I would say you could go online, look up Tiny Whoop, and it's WHOOP. One company is Acroby. The other company is Tiny Whoop itself. But I would say this too. Please stay away from Chinese drones, because once you put it on your phone, they're going to, you'll have the back and forth to China. I testified in front of the Senate Commerce Committee in June 2019. And Ron, this is your world on Capitol Hill, but I was invited to get there. And I would say, get an Nsbe. If you want to get a higher end drone, $1,000, get one that's at least controlled by a French company, so a NATO partner. You have things like Skydio, US company named Teal. Or you could do like the Marines did and get an open source kit. MITRE helped them build a drone. Matilda, I think, is the name of it. There's some other things with it, but why not get a program where you build your own drone? You can do that with kits and components, but we need to get to the place where we have US made drones the president's inspiring everybody. We're going to build back better. And I would say when you want to make these kits, they're inexpensive options, but always consider, nothing against the Chinese people, but China is a great power competitor. China is a great power competitor, GPC. And so really early on, start having that cyber hygiene where even when you're the drone that you're buying for your team or to play around with, really think about where your bits are going and where your chips came from on supply chain. So, but I'm here to help. Anybody who wants to get in touch with me, my last name's Wingo. If you look for, and Harry is like, it's not descriptive. You find me, I'll help you. And please go through BDPA as well. Thank you.
All right, if at our next BDPA event, you guys see a drone flying around in the back, you guys can blame Harry because now I'm intrigued and I'm gonna have to look into this some more. But all right, this next question is for Ayana. So tell us how, and it's gonna be more about your story, so please feel free to take your time. Tell us how a young girl from Detroit arrived on stage to support a robust defense industrial base.
Oh my. So my story is, it's not complicated. It's just not easy. I am the baby of 3, and I'm the only girl. My oldest brother is that perfect child. He went to FAMU. He graduated. He got a career with Lockheed out in the DC area. And then he went on to get his master's from George Mason in computer science. And I wasn't rebellious, but I wasn't on that narrow path. So at 19, he said, why don't you come out to DC with me? Actually, I was 21. He said, come out to DC with me and live, because there's so many different opportunities out here. So I'm like, okay, fine. At that point, I was a single parent. And he goes, like, what's going on in Detroit? And I'm like, I'm just making it. And he's like, well, come out here. So I had the opportunity to actually stay with him and help. And he allowed me to be able to get myself on track and get my foot planted in this area. My first year here, I was hired at BAE Systems. And I started out on a contract, and then I started meeting people in the procurement field and understanding what exactly procurement and contracts and subcontracts is. And from that moment, I was hired over into procurement. And from there, I grew a relationship with the supplier diversity director, Diane Dempsey at BAE, and she became my mentor. And she mentored me on the best practices in supplier diversity as an industry, and also hired me to work with her in her program at that time. And from there, it's just kind of shot off. I ended up going back to school to finish my degree, which my degree is in marketing. I left BAE and I went back to Michigan. I got married, and life happened in between that time. But we moved back to Michigan for a short period of time, and I found myself at General Dynamics Land Systems. And I loved it there, but we didn't like Michigan. We came back to the DC area. I always tell people, whenever you go to DC, you're never going to leave. It doesn't matter how often you say, I'm tired of the traffic, I'm moving. No, you're going to come back. So I did. I came back, and I started out at Boeing. And then from Boeing, I worked at Boeing International. I made excellent contacts there. I loved what I did. And then I had an opportunity to fall back into supplier diversity at GDIT, which is where I am now. And at that time, GDIT had just acquired another large business. I was offered the opportunity to kind of reprogram our supplier diversity program, re-engage with our small business partners, and grow our company internally as well as externally. So while my path is just like, every year I'm like, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But in this, I learned that I really love partnership development. I love advocating for small businesses, and I love pushing small businesses forward so that they can get contracts with the government. That is just a passion of mine.
Absolutely. Well, look at you. Congratulations on your success. I think it's so cool to say that point about DC. I'm from California. I actually went to Michigan State for undergrad. So I was 5 years. Then I came to DC for my master's at American. Somehow I graduated 3 years ago, and I'm still here. So
it doesn't matter. As much as you say, I'm going to leave the DC area, I don't even count my years in Michigan when we went back, because that was only a year. So I've been in this area for almost 12 years. So.
That's real. All right, this next question is for you, Ron. How do we attract young people of color into technical and smart city advocacy roles on the Hill?
Well, I think this is probably now one of the best opportunities to do that. I'm sure you've been reading about all the infrastructure packages that they've been talking about. And again, it's not just roads and bridges, but we're also talking about manufacturing, broadband, the development of future technologies to support sustainability. So I think there are going to be plenty of opportunities to do that. I actually am working on the Smart City project now in the city of Chattanooga. And what I've seen with that, the opportunity to do that, is really a partnership between higher education, University of Tennessee, Chattanooga, and the city and the private sector. But the key thing is that this was driven by policymakers. So I say that to say, if when there is the opportunity for smart cities to be implemented, around the country, and I think it's going to be plenty of places, I would probably start talking to my city council members, the mayor's office, and even the department heads. And I think it gets back to what Anissa and what Harry has said. It's about relationships and networking and doing your homework. I think there's some interesting things around the smart city piece because you can advocate for safety, for sustainability, and along the lines of that, they're going to have people who can implement these smart cities. It gets back to the type of skills that BDPA, tries to work with folks to advance. So I think some advocacy groups would be great. BDPA is one that I would say. I even think that you would even get into, even some of the civic groups. I think you'll see now, whether it's NAACP or it's the National Urban League, they will start to push these kinds of things too. But I would say if I were a young person trying to do this now, I would definitely start with the people that I know in my community in regard to what are they doing to advance a smart city, and how can I be a part of that? Now that may take you back to some internships in some city departments. I think on the Hill, you have a congressman and you have senators, but I think politics starts as local, is always local. You start at the local level, put pressure there, because if they really want it, then their resources at the federal level, they're going to push there. One of the other ways that we've gotten students involved in advocacy around whether smart city or whether it's STEM or whether it's politics has been through university internships and even the high schools. I was just this morning talking to someone and I'm going to go speak at a high school about the, where we are with government right now, the state of government. And so again, having those discussions, if there are students that are interested, then I want to make sure that I'm there to answer their questions. And I often will, with a lot of my friends, if they're students and kids are interested in what I'm doing, I have no problem getting on the phone for 30 minutes to an hour, because we have to mentor our own at the end of the day. So the key thing to something like that too is finding a mentor and really digging into what they do and how can I be a part of it. The thing about smart city, if we like STEM and numbers and computers, it's all of those things. Mm-hmm. I mean, at the end of the day, if I want to prevent crashes, so how do I deal with the statistics tied to that, or build an app that will let me know someone's going to turn left and I want these people to be at this light for this amount of time. I got to see a pedestrian come out. So it's all those, it's really, really interesting stuff. But I think, you have to start at the local level with that. And I think you can actually, even before you get to the Hill, you can hone your skills in advocating locally and then grow them up to whether it's to the state and then up to the level of Congress. And frankly, everyone in Congress now is on social media too. And, you'd be surprised, they respond and they read those things. I mean, I had one guy come after me, a congressman, because he wasn't supporting something that would advance STEM and higher education. And he read what I said and he told me that I was not correct. And I told him I was correct. And here's what you said. So, the line is that you don't feel like you're not able to engage, because that's not true. You can engage in so many ways. And we're always looking for more boots on the ground on Capitol Hill who look like us. So.
Absolutely. We're going to actually stay in the smart city discussion. Harry, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just so inspired, Ron, by what you just said, and we got to work together. I wanted to share the concept on smart cities when you consider privacy and equity, for artificial intelligence, like Joy Bolamwini, sister from MIT, who was talking about computer vision and how it's just not equitable. So we need trust cities. We need cities that all Americans can trust on what's happening with computer vision, with your information. And so digital twin, for all of our guests and for the students out there, this is one of those things where a lot of technologies like artificial intelligence, broadband comes together, digital twin, and especially I know Anissa in Air Force, because of Dr. Will Roper and others in Air Force, it's used for procurement, for development. It's an old concept, but digital twin technologies that could be used by those who aren't necessarily the engineers. You have folks, think about cross-disciplinary. If you're going to go to law school, if you're doing maybe social sciences but you're in the STEM, so that STEAM aspect, digital twin technology leverages things that you would recognize from the gaming world, gaming technology, but it's more powerful than that. It's not just a design platform. It's a life cycle, life stream. You take a product. If you're designing a self-driving car for a city, how do you have this cloud-based environment where you can, address these concepts up front? So I just wanted to foot stomp digital twin as something that's a powerful concept. And NIST, the Department of Commerce, the National Institute for Standards and Technology, there's a link. If you search for NIST and digital twin, comments are due on June 16th. I think HBCUs, computer science departments should talk to the legal departments and others, but HBCUs should be filing comments before 16 June on digital twin. That's a great opportunity to get out there and get into it. How do we design smart cities that become trust cities? Thanks.
And this is Ronnie, and I'll just say the problem that we've seen with the smart city strategy too is that it often it's not inclusive and it's not diverse. So those are the kinds of things that you definitely can advocate on at all levels and say, hey, if you're going to fund these things, and actually I think with the Biden administration, we're going to be in good shape because that diversity and equity and inclusion is really going to be involved across all of the federal agencies. But I think now is the time to strike on that to make sure if these smart city strategies are being developed and implemented, we want to make sure on the front side that they're inclusive and diverse.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I feel like we're playing musical chairs here. With the screens, Microsoft Teams just kicked me out. Little technical difficulties, but we're handling it well. So thank you, everybody. Sorry about that. We're going to stay on the smart city discussion right here for a second. Actually, I had some questions I wanted to add. Ronnie already touched on this a little bit when it came to infrastructure. Where do you see our society going with the next generation infrastructure? So think broadband, Wi-Fi, autonomous vehicles, drones, as Harry was talking about earlier. Where do you see society going? And going back to what I was saying about people accepting the technology, do you see that holding us back when it comes to becoming a truly smart nation? And Ron, you can start, but anybody can talk about this if they'd like. Can you hear me? You're on mute.
Yeah, you guys may be more ahead of the curve on the technology than I am, but what I can say is, based on dealing with this, the power grid, dealing with electric vehicles, investments in new technologies, all those things are going to be happening, and again, whether, the Republicans get what they want or the Democrats, I think you will see that those things are going to be embedded into whatever the program, whatever infrastructure program that is enacted into law. So the key thing too is I think because they're going to make these investments, and based on what President Biden has said is that he wants sustained investment into these areas. As you know, when you deal with power grids, EVs, clean energy is the future, and all those things, technology is always going to be changing. So I think what we will see is continued investments in those areas, and that's what I've heard according to calls I've been on with White House staff. The reason they say that too is you can't stand in place. You have to do these things and also convince people that it's the right way to do this, because it's all about our economic competitiveness, at the end, and creating those high-paying quality jobs in this country in the years to come. So I think all of that is tied together. If you look at whether the water systems or the schools, what are we going to do? I think the pandemic has really rolled back the curtain on how far we really are behind from an infrastructure standpoint, and the fact that we have to build our economy on technology moving forward. We can't just stay where we are. So I actually think that, with what's happening with this administration and even on the Hill, I think eyes are opening up that, we are, to be competitive at the end of the day, we're going to have to invest in technologies now and long into the future. And I think people will adapt accordingly.
I wanted to jump in and add something to what Ron said. Let's consider artificial intelligence and how much that depends on data, good data, data we can get our hold of, but also data that's relevant to specific contexts, specific communities, individual lives. The challenge that we face in the United States and that all democracies, our friends and allies around the world face, is that we respect privacy. I've got my Constitution here with me right here. And so that concept of how we can grab data, whether it's images of people's faces, the live stream of a certain intersection in a city block, we have to go at the speed of trust and privacy. Whereas take China, for example, great power competitor, they don't. They are an autocracy. They can grab data in their nation in a way that we can't. So we have to get around this privacy hurdle, which is important, but things like synthetic data. Look up synthetic data. I encourage all the HBCU and other people who are, like students who are listening, getting started, privacy and how we can use cloud-based other assets to say, I'm going to trust the privacy part of this. It's going to be designed in a way that I am okay with it. And maybe it doesn't take everything about my face. Maybe the hardware, the software itself obfuscates or blurs my information, and I can share on my own terms. I decide to be a data donor. Look at the moves that Apple just made, where they say, look, we're going to go after this surveillance capitalism system. I worked at Google. I was a lobbyist, when the DC shop for Google. And so I know how that system works. But it's all up to all of us to say, this is the way we want to get past that hurdle on being stuck on not getting the data we need fast enough and at scale. And we'll work it through, but there's opportunities not only on the technical side for how you have privacy by design that will enable smart cities, trust cities, but also on the policy side. And the work that Ron's doing, talking to the Congress, working with those who make the laws, it's critical, and you can contribute on any part of that role. So I just wanted to add that, but we need smart cities for jobs, for the economy, for protecting ourselves, and it's really an exciting time. But we won't be able to develop ethical AI without a collaborative design by everybody being included.
Excuse me, Mr. Quince, could I ask you to put your shut your camera off while the panel is discussing, and then you can turn it on when we go to Q&A. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, so still talking about smart cities. How does 5G fit into this discussion? Anyone can answer this as well. Or what are your thoughts on 5G? I feel like a lot of cities are in different areas of acceptance when it comes to 5G, especially as part of their smart city initiatives. But how does 5G even fit into this discussion?
I'm going to jump in, even though I just talked. I was at the Federal Communications Commission for a while when I worked on the Senate Commerce Committee in the 109th Congress. We were trying to get broadband out faster. 5G is essential, but so is 6G. We have to look at what's next as well. And this is a point where we have to make it here or with our allies. China is in a race with us to try and get their 5G equipment out. 5G is nothing less than remaking the internet. And it's essential because it will be ultra reliable, low latency communications. Ultra reliable means it's about how fast, there's no latency. And once you connect, you can have smart factories where, recovering from the coronavirus or whatever might be the next pandemic, you can have someone work maybe even from the other side of the country in a factory where they aren't. Those networks, that type of next generation broadband is essential to how we're going to do human machine pairing, like how will human beings work within the economy with robotics. And as a nation, we have to understand how we can do this in an equitable way as we build back better. 5G, 6G, broadband is critical. Thanks.
Absolutely. Anyone else want to add to that?
I'll just say, Harry's exactly right. And there's a reason why this administration is wanting to spend $100 billion on broadband. And I think, as I said, it gets down to, I think it's a quality of life issue, and it's really, a utility at this point. It's not a luxury. I mean, and I think going through this pandemic and, even working within my family, with everyone on the internet and working and all of that, it's, it just shows them the essential nature of this. And I think you're right. It's 5G. We're going to have to keep on, expanding upon that, those capabilities too. But the key thing, again, it comes down to, you have to make sure people have access to this, from a healthcare standpoint. I mean, you look at telehealth now, lots of that's happening. I think even I've had friends tell me they don't travel across the world anymore. And even when the pandemic is gone, that they may not, because they are going to rely, on a robust broadband connection to conduct lots of business. So I think, again, that is something that Republicans and Democrats agree on, that we have to invest in that type of infrastructure. Even when the Republicans they've just put out their version of infrastructure bill, which is 4 times the size of what President Biden has suggested. But they did include, I think, $65 billion for broadband, whereas he's including 100 to 115 million. So the bottom line is, either way, there is some bipartisan agreement that broadband is essential, and it's actually at a critical nature in this country to expand it so that everyone has access.
Absolutely. All right.
I would just add, and I agree with what Harry and Ron said. So, when it comes to, we talked a lot about smart cities, and 5G just goes right along with, that IoT, the Internet of Things, is all of these have to have some sort of diffusion and innovation to put together. You can't have a smart city with web services and internet services. The 5G really builds that smart city to allow for the IoT to be able to use that access in case. I mean, just small things from being able to test the data analytics of waste treatment and parking are big things that are really heavily an issue in inner cities. And it's when it comes to smart cities, that's the way of the future for inner city living, is that smart city. And 5G just is to me, it's just a complement to the data collection. And it is about, when Harry touched on it, about trust. You hear a lot of feedback about 5G and they're this, but at the end of the day, when it comes to why not use security, why not use smart cities to be able to have more secure cities? And you have to have some trust built into that as well. But, it's all about the Internet of Things, that IoT, and diffusing of 5G into our normal lifestyle that it is. But it's the way of the future. So it's just a matter of making sure we are ahead of the curve. And as Harry kept mentioning, China, is right there, and the United States, we have to make that step into that direction and establish that trust.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Can I jump in real quick? I know we're coming up on the hour, but what Anissa said, here's an example. Consider how a smart city technology for public safety might be designed. For example, the tragedy of George Floyd and a step towards justice with the recent decision in the court case. But imagine if you said, hey, well, how would I design? How could we co-design a trust city, a way to have police not respond necessarily to every situations where they sometimes do. Take, for example, what's that mean? What about traffic enforcement or dangerous intersections? I know Mayor Bowser in Washington, D.C., she has Project Zero to reduce pedestrian traffic deaths, where people are hit by cars and intersections, down to 0. How could you use cameras, sensors, a cloud-based system where maybe somebody's car 5 years from now will connect, take a picture, and protect people's privacy, but show things that are like, what's going on? What's the life of that city based on the Internet of Things, Internet of Everything? But the problem is, again, how do you have a trust network for privacy? How do you do, and Anissa knows this would be called JADC2, or some of these things that the military is doing, but the equivalent for how you can share information at machine speed with 5G, 6G networks and use that in a loop, right? And observe, orient, decide, act loop at the city level. That takes design. That takes standards. That takes a whole of society effort to tie that all together. And we're holding ourselves back if we don't do the hard work of designing it. And so imagine where police have more information, but we also get that information as citizens, maybe connected to our phones. And so, you know, there's just so many things. And students and those who are younger members of BDPA, imagine if you had a platform where you could do a serious game of this type of design and make the trust cities that you want, that will have AI that helps all Americans and all of us. And the diversity of ideas that are out there, we have to find better ways of tapping into it. But thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We're actually going to wrap up. That was perfect timing right now. Any closing remarks from the panelists? Please, this is your time to say your last bit of piece, share any resources, shout outs to any programs you're working on. I'll leave the floor to you guys for the next few minutes.
I just wanted to jump in real quick and thank BDPA for the partnership that you've established with the Air Force and our HBCU initiative. As a big plug here, in August is the National BDPA Conference, and the BDPA has opened up the door to allow the Air Force to have our HBCU Collider event along with your national conference. So look forward to seeing you there at the national conference.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other remarks?
Just want to say thanks again to BDPA, Perry Carter. You've done a great job as a moderator. Thank you. And to the audience and everyone who wants to help the mission of BDPA. I had to hold up this tiny whoop. You see how small this is? And
About to give me one.
It goes into is actually the same visor. You fly this around your house. But I would say let's work together. And so excited that BDPA continues the mission, doing great work. And I'm humbled and honored to have been part of this discussion. Thank you.
And this is Ron. I definitely appreciated the opportunity and humbled to have been part of the panel today. And thanks again to BDPA and Perry. We've had a long relationship. And, I look forward to supporting the goals and objectives of BDPA. And if there's anything I can do from a policy standpoint, or anyone would like to talk politics, Perry has my contact information. And again, most of the time, a lot of the stuff is around making sure that you do your homework and that you have a strategy and you want to implement it. And remember, you can always be engaged at every level. That's the one thing that I want to leave you with today. There is no level that's accessible to you to give input to when it comes to the policies, whether it's in your communities or this country. So again, thank you very much.
I wanted to say thank you as well to Perry for inviting me to be a part of this. This was not only I was excited to be a part of this Q&A, but also very informational for me and some things I've jotted down to take back to my team from our government counterparts. So thank you to Perry and BDPA for allowing me to be a part of this.
Thank you so much for all being so informative. I cannot get drones out of my head now. I'm already obsessed with robots. So I'm eager myself. I learned something new today as well. And if you're heading out, thank you for joining us.
Now, when any department goes out into the community, we're able to hear the positive responses. And that is a great feeling to know that what we're doing is affecting and impacting the community. In the past, we've heard negative responses about the city being unclean, there's a lot of trash on the ground, or the police, we never see them.
It was important for our residents to feel as though that government was going to be responsive.
People were relying on a 9 to 5 being able to contact about any issues that they had.
We put together a very innovative app that gave our residents access.
IBM assisted the city of Sea Pleasant to incorporate Watson into the My Sea Pleasant app. Any resident who has a question that they want to ask about the city on a 24-hour basis can go into the app and click on Watson to ask it a question.
We had a tree fall, and instead of having to call City Hall, I just went and used the chat and said that there's a tree falling in the middle of the street, and they sent Public Works out to get it for me.
I've used it to report potholes that are in the street. I've used it to see what's going on in the city.
No matter where our public works director is, no matter where our employees are, they're able to log in because it is on IBM Cloud and get the service request in real time and respond, in a quick and efficient manner.
It allows them to get to us sooner. On a weekend doesn't matter because it comes through, I'm gonna get it. So I love it. I don't see how we ever did without it.
Because of the wide use of cyberspace and our dependence on it, we have an inherent vulnerability, and that's why it's vital that we defend it properly. Generally, in warfare, you have an organized enemy, a force that's mobilized by a country, has a nation's backing. The cyberspace attacks can occur on an individual basis. Anybody with a $200 laptop and the right skill sets can go in and wreak havoc in cyberspace. Some examples of where you would find cyberspace are the control of power systems. Nuclear power is regulated through the use of computers. Your water system is regulated through computer systems. Because we operate so much in cyberspace, that is the new battlefield. It's constantly changing, and therefore we need to be able to adapt and overcome the problems that we face in cyberspace. And the Air Force is there to answer that call. In the future, this is going to be the premier warfighting domain. This is going to be where the major battles occur. I'm Captain Scott Hink, and I'm an Air Force Cyber Warrior.